Why would 18,000 people take my guest leadership masterclass? I'm about to find out, and I think I'm going to love it. My guest today is Frans Campher. He's an executive coach and leadership strategist. He spent 28 years in international insurance, including CEO and board roles, then shifted to coaching senior leaders at places like BP, Deloitte, Citibank, Johnson & Johnson, some pretty household names around the world. He created the Leader as Coach Masterclass that caught my attention. With more than 18,000 participants, and he lectures and leads a program at Imperial College Business School, a highly ranked and innovative school in London, England, where I used to live. I'm envious. His new book, Dynamic Leadership in a Disruptive World, is a culmination of all these experiences.
Welcome to Leading with Curiosity. Command and control leadership is dead. We interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and executive coaches challenging old paradigms and fostering cutting-edge leadership. Here's your host, certified executive coach, Nate Leslie.
Frans, welcome to Leading with Curiosity.
It's really good to be with you, Nate. Thank you. And isn't it funny that you lead with curiosity? At the heart of our coaching masterclass program is a statement that we say is you need to be present and you need to be curious. So I love the idea that we are talking about curiosity in the middle of leadership, because I think that's essential.
Well, let's be those two things, present and curious. I know from our pre-interviews, this conversation is going to be easy, and there's going to be a lot right on the table. Coaches listening, for leadership trainers listening, whether you're emerging leaders like in some of your programs at the business school or a senior leader, there is so much that's going to come out of this conversation that's going to be tons of value for our listeners. I'm going to give you 3 questions in a lightning round. So super short answers will just get us off to the races. Sound good?
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, here we go. What's the number one thing most people get wrong about leadership today?
That they try to have all the answers and have everything that they need to pull together in a way that I think doesn't create the space for people to grow.
Number 2, in 2 words, what's the key to leading with authenticity?
Trusting yourself.
Trusting yourself. Okay, so you've worked with over 18,000 people in these programs. What's the single biggest surprise that you've learned about yourself in that process?
That I don't have to have all the answers and I don't need to be the expert. What I have to be expert at is creating the container for the brilliance to emerge.
So let's talk about that right there, letting go of needing to have the answers. It came up in 2 of your answers there. What compels leaders to think that they need to have all the answers?
I think if you look at leaders as they come to the work that they do, I like to use the analogy of the orchestra in explaining this. So it's the best analogy I can come up with leadership. And that is, I join the orchestra as the violinist. I'm expert at what I do. I play beautiful music. And then after a while, I start to gather some expertise and people say, well, this person start leading the team. And so I get given lead violinist, and now I look after the violin section in the orchestra. I still have to play the instrument, but I've got to look after the section and make sure that we as a section are producing good outputs for the orchestra. And then somebody says to me, please stop playing the instruments and pick up the baton. So they get asked to pick up the baton, and now they become the conductor. And because our identity is formed in those first 2 phases about how I'm the expert and I have all the answers and I make things happen, that expansion from managing to leading becomes very difficult, because the person wants to retain their identity and they can't let go. They can't stop playing the instruments. That's the biggest challenge for me. And that's what I'm discovering in the work that I do. And it's that identity shift that allows them to actually multiply their impact through others. Because if you think about the orchestra, the conductor will say to you that my principal role is to make sure that the orchestra plays magnificent music so beautifully that they have shiny eyes, and that therefore the audience has shiny eyes. And I love that as a metaphor for leadership. My job is to create shiny eyes in the people around me so that my stakeholders, my customers, the people that I'm serving actually have shiny eyes as well. So I think that's the biggest challenge. I think that leaders say, I have to have the answers. I'm in control. And it's interesting. If I go on a little bit, Nate, about this, is that I find it fascinating that when they get promoted, they get amnesia. They forget what good leadership looked like. And they think because they've been promoted, they now need to control the heck out of things. And often I say to leaders, I say, if you were being led by you, what would you want from you?
Hmm.
It's like a light bulb that goes off in their brains to go, oh my goodness, I'm acting exactly like I really try to avoid the leaders who controlled me, micromanaged me, etc. And here I am. I've got amnesia and I forgot what it is that I'm looking for. And often leaders go, oh my goodness, you can't believe what I've been doing and what I should be doing is what I appreciated from the leaders that were really good with me. So it's an interesting challenge, I think, that we're facing as leaders.
Great metaphor. I'm going to go back to the start of it. The first two stages from being a really great violinist
Yeah,
to lead violinist
yeah,
comes with it more responsibility, but still that area of expertise,
correct.
right? It's still, I know what all the other violinists should be doing. And then suddenly the baton is in your hand. You've got however many instruments in an orchestra, let's say 20, 30 different instruments. And okay, some orchestra leaders might be able to play most of those instruments, but probably not. And they no longer need to be able to, right? So
Precisely.
so take that metaphor into a business. You go from that area of expertise to maybe that, the manager of the team, that small group, but then suddenly it scales and you
Yes.
can't possibly know.
No, you can't. And you have to be more strategic, and you also have to have an enterprise mindset. Very often in your teams, you're in your function and you're not looking widely across the organization and the bigger enterprise that you're playing in. I call it in the expert space, I'm the I. It's about I and me and what I'm going to do in the short term. In the team space, it's we. What do we do as a function? And in the catalytic space, as the orchestrator, I become the enterprise leader. I think widely about the whole system rather than the pieces that I currently look after.
I'm going to ask you about what it means to be strategic in just a minute, because for new leaders, sometimes they have a hard time
Yes.
really wrapping their heads around what that means. But let's go. You just mentioned the word catalytic, and I know in my research, you see that violinist trap. There's sort of a flow from expert to achiever to catalytic. Just say more about that. Let's use those words now: the expert, the achiever, the catalytic.
Yeah, as I said, the expert is typically somebody that is narrowly focused. They're deep in their expertise and they deliver probably short-term projects. Their time horizon is probably a year. It'll be about a year that they're looking at, maybe 6 months to a year. And then I move into the achiever. I have a team around me, moving really highly outcomes focused in that space. I'm sure about my goals. My goals are probably a year to 15 months, that kind of time horizon. And then you have the catalytic leader who's looking at this thing much longer. Now, in the current environment, you can't have a 5-year plan, fixed plan, but you certainly want to have, if you like, the range and the ability to look at it from an enterprise and probably above enterprise level in terms of the industry you're in and so on. And you have a longer term view about doing that. The expert is often working one-to-one. The achiever works a little bit through their team, whereas the catalytic leader is how do I orchestrate everybody and make sure they are delivering in all of their functions. I multiply my impact through the way that I lead and I coach and I develop the people around me. I'm in charge of the culture. I've got to drive the culture, make the culture what it needs to be. But I can only do that by being authentic myself and being open to all of the perspectives that are around me. It's a totally different game. I know that you use a sports analogy. You're moving from playing golf to now I'm part of the a football team, and I'm an important cog in the middle of that, and I'm the captain of the team. I've got to make sure everybody's playing. It's a different game that you're playing in that moment. It's a totally different game.
I have three buckets here: the expert bucket, the achiever bucket, and the catalyst bucket. There's a CEO listening right now that's shifting, either already great at it and they're nodding their heads saying Frans is right, or they're maybe thinking, oh, multiplying my impact, multi-year view, focused on the culture, being able to enable all of those around me. How do people feel when they have a micromanaging, commanding CEO?
Well, I think so. One of the things I'd like to say in preface as well is that context matters. So what I'm encouraging leaders to do is to be able to have the range. There are moments when they need to be expert. There are moments when they need to be achiever leader. But if they're going to hang out, the most of the time is going to be in catalytic leadership. And I'll tell you that the smart people that you hire don't like to be micromanaged. I remember Steve Jobs saying it's no good hiring smart people and then telling them what to do. And I don't think he always did that, by the way. I'm respectful of him, but I don't think he always did that in his
Yeah.
early days. In his latter days, he came to understand that you hire great people, and your job is to set them free and let them, excel and become brilliant at what they're doing. That takes an identity shift, and it takes an extraction of ego to do that. Actually, as a catalytic leader, it's no longer about you. It's about the people that you attract, you retain, you grow, and you actually want smarter people than you. You don't need to play the instruments anymore because you have people that are smarter than you playing the instruments. Your job is to make sure that they play beautiful music together. And I think that's a powerful metaphor to use from a leadership point.
I think we should go there next. That identity shift and letting go of the ego. That this is, you were the violinist.
Yep.
Now you're the conductor. Those
Yep.
are labels, right? You are a violinist. You are the conductor. And leadership development is this whole person approach, this inside approach, like who am I? What do I stand for? What does the organization stand for?
Yes.
They say a little bit more about the identity shift and letting go of the ego.
So one of the things that I think we make a mistake in leadership development is we think that layering on skills will get us where we need to get to. So I can become a really good coach, but if in my mindset I'm not catalytic, then I'm still going to get involved in playing the instruments, and I'm going to come up with the answers, and I'm going to tell people what to do. So fundamentally what it needs, I think, is the deepening development of the human being to say that it's the way I show up. It's the way that I create space. I'm present. I'm curious. I'm open to different perspectives. I'm really going to make sure that I'm having the right kinds of conversations in order to get the best out of the people around me. And it's no longer about what I can do and what I can solve, but it's what the collective can solve. And so it's that identity shift, that deepening development of me as a human being, I think is the powerful thing. I can then layer skills on top of that that'll make me even more effective because I approach it from the right vantage point, if you like, and use it from
As you said, context matters. Sometimes some expertise
is required.
is required. However, it's almost as simple as that, isn't it? The more senior the leader, how you show up and how it feels for people to be in a room with you determines success, doesn't it? Could we be bold and simplify it almost that?
It's very simple. It's very simple for me. I was just talking to somebody this afternoon who I'm coaching, and this is a powerful leader. And the feedback that I'm getting from people around him is when he comes into the room, he commands the room. And when he starts speaking, everybody quietens down and you don't hear the different perspectives. And so because he's so powerful and because he has enormous expertise and he has a really big track record, he quietens everybody down. And as Simon Sinek says, you need to speak last. When you enter a room, speak last.
Yeah.
So the shadow that leaders throw when they are really powerful and they have deep expertise and they have deep experience, really watch the shadow that they show and making sure that all of the people in the room have a voice and that you open and listen very carefully to the different perspectives. Key skill for me is listening to understand different perspectives. That's a key skill.
I need to ask you something very practical that I think is great for a coach listening who is working their way up, working with more and more senior leaders, and for a CEO or senior leader listening to this right now, wondering, if I were to work with an executive coach, how might that process go? And here's what caught my attention. You're talking about this leader that you're coaching, who's very powerful, lot of experience. And he said, the feedback that I'm getting from those around him, can you just literally lay out that process of gathering that feedback and what a coaching engagement with you looks like for a very senior leader?
Sure. I do it via verbal conversations rather than sending out a questionnaire.
Okay.
I think questionnaires don't work. What I want to do is I talk to stakeholders around a leader like this and get their perspective on what this person does well, what could make them better, what they need to stop, what they need to start, and any advice that they may have. And then I pay very careful attention to the language patterns that they use. And if they make a statement, I'll say, give me an example. And they'll give me real examples, etc. And then what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the themes in terms of how this leader behaves, what do they do really well, what they could do to make it better. And I summarize that and it forms the foundation of the goal setting that we have with the client. And this is a mixture of skills, but more importantly, it's about how I as a leader show up. So in terms of my presence, my authenticity, how I listen to different perspectives, how I orchestrate rather than telling people what it should be and doing things that perhaps others should be doing and I should be more strategic. Because one of the things I'm finding is that leaders are operating at a level below where they should. And then what happens, that pushes people down in the organization. And what's happening in this current environment is AI is pushing from the bottom. People in the middle of the organization are being squeezed from both ends because the leaders are operating lower than they should. They're not creating the space for leaders, for their people to emerge and to grow and to develop. And if you think about the greatest human need is, as a leader, I've got to create the space for people to grow and develop, to be seen, to be heard. And yes, we're going to use AI to automate some good work. That's excellent. But then allowing the space for these people to grow, I think, is much more important. And so this leader that I'm working with, that's exactly what I'm playing with, is that he knows that he's playing at a level, probably 2 levels below where he should, and he needs to step up and out. But that means he has to have the right people around him and he needs to develop them and grow them. That's his primary example.
Said another way, operating at a lower level for the listener, getting too involved in other people's stuff.
Absolutely. Yes, getting involved in other stuff, not trusting people to do what they need to do, to being brilliant, etc. See, one of the things I say to leaders is you never give up on the outcome. What you need to give up on is how their people do things. They may do things differently, but you never let go of the outcome and allow them to emerge. And then, in fact, what often happens is they get much better outcomes. Because when you give somebody and you say, how will you resolve this problem? They take ownership of that problem and they go, oh, I would do this and I would do that. And they'd make it happen much, much quicker. When you tell somebody what to do, often the person goes, well, you quite haven't understood the context. And they come back and I'm having the second conversation about the same subject because the person doesn't own the outcome. And it's the ownership of the outcome. And I think as leaders, we need to facilitate the ownership of that outcome. It's much more important.
I love connecting dots. I'm going to back up and just paraphrase something for the listener, and then I'm going to jump back ahead. In describing how you support and engage with a senior leader in that one-to-one, you said you like to use verbal conversation. So we call that a narrative 360. So Frans is talking to maybe who that person reports to, their peers, their direct reports. A narrative 360, you're gathering some themes that you're going to share back to the leader for them to make sense of, to create some leadership development goals. In this example, this leader happens to be getting in other people's stuff, right? Doing other people's job for them.
Yeah.
One of their goals, but the goals that emerge vary from leader to leader. You did say you explore how they're showing up, right? How they're showing up, said another way, how it feels for people to be in a room with them.
Nice. Yep. I think that's a great way to describe it. Yes.
About 10 minutes ago, I said I want to talk about that word strategy.
Yes.
And then I heard you talking about how people get things done. You've also talked about Simon Sinek. So if we just take his golden circle before people know what you do, they want to know why you do it. Purpose. Why do we exist?
Correct.
Why does the organization exist besides paychecks and employment opportunities? Far more than that. What the organization does. We build widgets, we build computers, we offer healthcare services. How we go about getting that work done is that final third layer. And so when a senior leader is too focused on the how, they're literally getting involved in people's autonomy. If you're an accountant, to how I go about doing my daily accounting, it's far too deep, right? What are you hearing that's resonating with you that the listener needs to know about?
All of that.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right, because as the leader, I think I have all the good ideas and I'm getting involved in how you do things. people are not then become disenfranchised. They go, well, okay, I'm just going to wait for you to give me instructions and the answers. The leader becomes the bottleneck. So their job is to go the why, is to get people really attached to the why we do things and the what to some extent, but actually not to say, this is what I want you to do. It's given the purpose. What's the creativity that I can unleash in amongst all of the people around me? So the what is defined and designed by all of the great people that you have, that you've taken on. And my job is not to get involved in the how. I'll have some governance on it. I'll make sure from an ethics point of view, etc., we're going to do good stuff, but actually stay out of people's way. If you think about the greatest human need is, do you see me? Does my work matter? Can I grow here? And if you as a leader are not allowing that to happen, man, you don't have longevity. You don't have sustainability.
Talk about those basic fundamental human needs again.
The human needs. Do you see me?
Yeah.
Do my ideas matter? And can I do my best work? And can I grow? That's the basic human need that there is. And if you're not giving that to people, man, it's a tough place for people to work if you're not giving them that space.
Helping people grow is the obligation of a leader to, while people are busy doing their work, to also help them move towards a desired future. I have clients who say, if they want to learn something, go watch a YouTube video. The psychological safety element in an assessment tool that we use is frighteningly low. It is our obligation as a leader to know what our team is interested in. The easy example I use is someone wants to get better at presenting. We have a presentation to make next week. Maybe you could lead some of it, right? I need to know, if I lead you, friends, I need to know what you're into, what fires you up, what skills you're trying to learn, where you're trying to leverage this career, and find opportunities. Won't work 100% of the time. There are stuff we need to get done, but there are far more opportunities right under my nose that I could help you develop if I see you and I hear you and I know what you're into, right? Your comment?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I'm finding, I speak to leaders and I say, who's responsible for the development of your people? And they go, oh, that's L&D. And I go, well, I've got some bad news for you. It has nothing to do with L&D. It has to do with you as a leader. You have to have a vested interest in this person's career, not own their career. They have to own their own career. But one of your jobs is to develop your people. You need to take control of that. Yes, you can go to L&D and get support for it, but you need to understand every individual that reports to you, what their needs are, what their wants are, what the future looks like for them. And your job is to support them in the development of their goals, whatever they might be. And I'm really passionate about that. And it's a big shift I'm trying to make in all the conversations I have is, please own the development of your people. Use L&D and HR as much as you like, but you own it, and you have regular conversations with them in the flow of work in what they need to develop and how they need to develop. And the other layer that I put on that is that I also say that leaders should be sharing their thinking. Very often they'll make a decision, but they don't share the thinking related to the decision that they've made. And so sharing thinking elevates the people around them to go up. And they start to connect the dots in terms of how this person thinks, and that speeds up the performance of the team. So I think that's a really interesting, it's been quite recent that I've started thinking about how people would do that. How would we share thinking so that there's an understanding of the strategic nature of what we're doing?
That touches on this idea, this pushback that people like you and I might get that, well, the leader has to make decisions. Yes, at the end of the day, some decisions are the responsibility of the leader. And sharing the thinking softens that and invites people into the conversation. Here's the decision we've decided to make, and here's how we got there.
Yes.
Maybe there's an opportunity more often to say, what do you think? What have we missed?
What have we missed?
Will the organization fall apart if we make this decision? So sharing the thinking takes it from command and control to yes, I have a decision to make, and I'm bringing you into it.
Precisely. And we may even go preface by saying, this is where I'm leaning, but I'd really like different perspectives in terms of what decision we should make here.
Yeah.
Given the people are closer to the context. What am I missing? Yeah. And being open to that conversation. Very often leaders I've made this decision and I'm going to go with it now. Oh, and by the way, you're not going to change my mind. That sometimes will lead you in the wrong direction for sure.
The decision is a half-baked or prepared cake,
Yeah,
but it hasn't gone in the oven yet, so maybe it's not half-baked, right?
precisely.
We're not saying throw a bunch of ingredients on the table and let people try to figure it out all the
No,
time.
no.
Sometimes that cake is looking ready before this goes in the oven. What am I missing, right?
What am I missing? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, and by the way, what icing are we going to put on it when it comes out?
Yeah, very good. I need to ask you about your Imperial College School of Business because I've been a university student, I think about 15 years of my life, from a long drawn out undergrad to
It's
grad
long.
school a couple of times. And I love getting a chance to talk to talk with people who are leading programs inside of academic institutions. Tell us a little bit about the program that you lead and that challenge that you give your professors and your instructors. Go ahead.
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure. So I'm a program director for a program called Leadership for a Technology Driven World. And it's got nothing to do with technology. It has a bit to do with technology, but it's in this disruptive world that we're in. How do we need to show up as leaders to maximize in the uncertainty the fact that we are operating at the levels that we should at? So it's a 5-day program, immersive, and we look at the practical nature of leading in this disruptive world and all of the concepts that we've been talking about so far: authenticity, expansion from managing to leading, becoming the conductor, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the program is about. But the core thing for me is that people leave with two major things. One is that they have a leadership signature that defines who they are and who they wish to become as a leader. And it's the becoming that's so important for me: my purpose, my identity, my values, and my skills and my behaviors and the environment I'm trying to create. So they walk away with a really practical template of what that looks like. And on top of that, they have to come away with at least two practices that they're going to adopt to make that real. And it's the two practices that are really important for me. And during the program, what we do is to make sure that everything is relevant and practical for context. For instance, I interview every person who comes on the program one to one. I understand where they come from, where they are, what they're trying to achieve, etc. And then I get to talk to them afterwards again. And the feedback we regularly get is that they've gone to other business schools. They've got a lot of information, but they haven't known what to do with it, what to implement. Whereas this is distinctly different. And the way that I do that is I talk to the contributors who come on and speak, and I say to them, it's not about you and your insights. Actually, I can get your insights and your knowledge off ChatGPT or Claude in about 5 seconds. So your insights are not important to me. What's important to me is how these people are going to make this relevant and practical for their context. So I have these tough conversations with them and I say, you've got a 90-minute session and you can only spend 30 minutes speaking. The rest of it has to be practical interaction, giving them exercises, giving them ideas on how they implement what your work is. And I get pushback because they are, but I'm the world expert on this and I need to speak. And I'm going, it's got nothing to do with your expertise. I'm afraid it's to do with what people can take away and practically implement. That's much more important for me. So I have a bad rep around that.
Where do you ground yourself when you had to learn to have the courage to tell experts you're bringing in to lecture to students that it's not about your insight and expertise? You, Frans, in holding steady on that, because there's some
Yes.
pretty smart, accomplished people you're bringing in.
Yes. They're extremely smart and most of them are far more intelligent than I am. But I am a little bit more practical, I think. So, and I also bring world experience. So I've been in a CEO role. I've done the work. So I bring that to it. And I guess I built the courage. Best decision I ever made early in my career, that who I was okay. So being authentic about who I am came naturally to me. My hope is that you ever met me, wherever you met me, the same person shows up. The basic fundamentals of me are the same. And so I think I just developed that capacity over time of saying what's real, but I do it respectfully. I don't do it in a bad way, but I do it respectfully. But I'm really clear about what we're trying to achieve from a philosophy point of view in the program.
There you go. You're clear on what you're trying to achieve, and you can't get there with a 90-minute lecture.
No, you just can't. You just can't.
I can't let you go because you've mentioned AI a few times. And
Yes.
the future of coaching,
Yep.
yeah, leaders can Google or search in Gemini or ChatGPT anything that we're talking about.
Yes. Yes.
Helping them process that is our role, I think. What's your take on why a leader should speak to humans like you and I instead of just getting a great chat string going on
Well,
ChatGPT?
I'll say two things about this. I think one of the things and why I think leaders need to elevate themselves in where they're working. So if you look at our workforces, AI is squeezing them from the bottom. They are feeling uncertain. And the real value is going to be created by those individuals who grab this opportunity to say, I will use AI. I'll synthesize the information. And actually, it's the value creation in the way that the information is pulled together and used, tested, and make sure is correct. Now, the same is going to happen when you're coaching. If you coach as a leader with an AI, you're going to get very good transactional answers to what's going on. But to understand who you are as a human being through your language patterns and the way that you speak to a coach, I will recognize patterns, tonality, what's elevated, what I really need to pay attention to. The AI will not be able to read tone and emotion in the same way as so I think an executive could come with some really good perspectives, but it's the deepening of those perspectives as a human being. And I don't think AI will ever replace that in my view. So we need to become really expert at taking the AI data, whatever comes. And actually I'm exploring an idea where we start to gather information from the very various points. I mean, if you think about an executives on Teams, on Copilot, there's lots going on. If we could get that data and have a look at it, we could see patterns and themes emerging. So that's easy. That's simple. But it's the translation into how do I think and behave differently. And a professor at Stanford, his name is Richard Pascal, said something which I think resonates in this. You cannot think your way into new behavior, but you can behave your way into new thinking. And it's only in the behaving, it's in the doing that you get stuff. Now, so answers off ChatGPT are not going to give you what I think you need in relation to the work that we do.
Let's leave it there. Frans, thanks for your time today.
Great to see you.
Thanks for listening to Leading with Curiosity. Please share, follow, and rate the show so that other leaders can make positive change in the world. Connect with Nate at nateleslie.ca. And remember, the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen.